I understand that there are a lot of challenges currently right now facing the industry, but lucky for us, we've got some phenomenal people here who are able to go ahead and just look at, the future of the industry. How do we want to shape it? So it's so great to know that we have these trailblazers, these leaders to look up to. And it is my absolute pleasure to welcome them next. They're challenging the status quo right now. They're focusing on innovation so that they can ensure that the Hispanic and Latinx community benefits from all areas of the industry. With us today is an outstanding lineup of panelists doing the damn thing. Marquita Levy, powerhouse sommelier for Red Hook Winery. She's also a sales rep for Volcanic Selections, who is simultaneously developing her own consulting business while she's also studying to obtain her Master of Wine certification. Hi, Marquita.
Hello, how are you?
So great. We've also got Darwin Acosta, a first-generation Afro-Hispanic and New York City native who founded Co-Fermented, an organization dedicated to creating awareness as well as facilitating representation for the LGBTQIA+ community within the wine industry, who's also currently working for Burgess Cellars. Hi, Darwin.
Hi.
And then we've also got with us Pedro Rodriguez, CEO and co-founder of Cata, who began his career in media development, but then went on to pursue his love and affinity for wine, food, people, Latin American culture through his entrepreneurial ventures. Bienvenidos.
Hola a todos.
Hola.
Hola, ¿cómo andamos?
Muy bien, gracias. Aquí saludos de Washington, D.C.
I love how bi-coastal this entire summit is. We're hearing from people from all over the industry.
Absolutely.
It's beautiful. No, and it's really amazing to just sit in community with just powerhouse individuals who have taken their passions for wine. You guys have all trailblazed a path in the direction of what you want this future in industry to look like. Somos Latinos, right? We are proud of our roots. We're proud of where our families have come from, where we have come from. And each of you have actually taken your identity, recognize the importance of increasing that visibility for your community, and are using that passion and your love for wine to continue to create platforms that build up these communities. Can you talk to me, and I don't know who wants to kick it off, but can you talk to me about how this has really inspired the work that you're each currently doing and the ways in which it's influenced you to shape a better future for wine?
Young men first.
I can start, guys. So Cata Mi States, our mission here in Washington, D.C. was to expose a lot of the folks that love wine. As you know, the nation's capital is full of international folks. So we wanted to leverage a little bit the playing field and introduce people to a lot of the wines from Latin America, but also bring fond memories of people that already know the wines. They travel to the country, say they don't know where to find them. So our mission was to always educate, taste, Cata Mi States. So before the pandemic, we did copious amount of amazing wine dinners, tasting events, wine classes. We have an amazing wine club as well. So it's a good opportunity to learn more about our culture. We are so proud of who we are. Julio, my co-founder, and I met here in DC in 2007. Best friends, we're still best friends, running two amazing wine shops here in the nation's capital. And it's always the challenge and kind of like our mission as Latin American ambassador of the wine to expose people to all these beautiful selections, starting from Baja California and Mexico all the way to Uruguay, Bolivia, Brazil, Argentina, and Chile. We're super proud of it, and that's kind of always kind of the pushing point of pushing people to learn more and get more engaged with our culture.
100%. Tanta diversidad, from food to wine,
Absolutely.
merging the two, the culture, really allowing people to embrace and learn more about the differences too between those cultures, because Mexicanos are different from Dominicans. You have different influences from Puerto Ricanos, from Bolivians, and we're all here in that Latino comunidad together. But it's like, again, when it comes to what does this industry look like, how are we each impacted? All of our roots have little differences, so tampoco don't treat us all the same, right? You've got to really understand every single cultura that exists within that much larger community as being identified.
And you just said the right thing. Like we want to show the diversity, obviously through the wines, but also our accents, our traditions, our customs, our music, our folklore.
Our
So
food.
Gran Cata is more than wine merchants, but at the same time, we're as I mentioned, Latin American ambassador of who we are, and we're proud of it, and that's our main mission.
I love it. I love it. I'm so jealous I'm not out in Washington, D.C. to check it out. Darwin, can you talk to me about how... Darwin, can you talk to me about how your identity and whether, you know, you're speaking from the LGBTQIA plus community as a Latino and Hispanic, how have you used your passions and love for wine to create platforms and continue building up the community around you to positively impact what the future of the industry looks like?
Yeah, so I'm going to start out by saying that I live two identities in the sense that, like, I come from a Latin household or Hispanic household. And then growing up and finally feeling comfortable in my own skin, and now I identify as non-binary and gay. So having to, like, go through my life with those two identities now, there's always like so many layers and so many conversations to have, because being queer in the Latin community has its own challenges. But then as well, like coming into the industry and trying to be my like wholesome self and trying to move across the industry, realizing that there's not many queer folks in the industry, and having to come into spaces where people aren't familiar with, you know, having someone who's there that may identify with different pronouns or may come from a different background, has been a few of my challenges. But I will say that with all of that coming together and learning about wine and wanting to be in the wine space, I think that I felt like I had to do something about it to represent more of my LGBTQIA folks, because growing up, like, with wine, I never had wine growing up. It was always coffee. It was always having coffee around, and that was like the initial beverage that sparked my interest. That led to many other interests, and which led me into wine. And then coming into the industry, realizing, like, you know, there isn't much representation, awareness, or support for my Latin folks. And then two, I'm like, where are my queer folks? And then the people who I do meet, we have several conversations about the equal challenges that we go through, just having to go through these spaces and pronouns being an issue, or, you know, not feeling seen or represented. So it's like now I felt like there was something I had to do. So earlier this year, I built an organization called Co-Fermented, which is exactly to help LGBTQIA folks in wine and bring their representation and awareness, and just make space for people to just come together and feel like they're not alone. That was most importantly what I wanted to do. So I've taken pretty much like all of my journey and my identity, and just like, I was like, I need to do something about it. And I've always been a person to create spaces wherever I've gone. I felt like wherever I've gone, I've always had to play a role in that community or in that space. And I definitely felt like coming to Napa, and most importantly, being in the wine industry and with all this movement going on, I felt like it was just a perfect time to do it. And here we are, doing the damn thing.
And looking mighty fine. I love those hoops. I'm missing mine.
Thanks. I told Marquita, I was like, I'm going to go put on my hoops and extend these curls, and here we are.
Marquita's got them on. That is amazing. And yes, for those of you who have also never heard of Co-Fermented or followed along on Co-Fermented, make sure you're doing so. Darwin's on Instagram. Darwin's the face and the founder of Co-Fermented. So be sure that you're following along and tap in, especially if you yourself too have also felt as somebody who identifies as LGBTQIA+, you're looking for your community in wine. Let Darwin be that person to help build those communities for you.
And to add on my thing, like, I hope to inspire like Latin folks that are also queer to come into the wine space, because I know what it's like having to deal with the machismo-ness in our Latin communities, and then having to deal with that from many white spaces as well. Like it is like, and then having to deal with it from two separate places, because like I go home and it's like, here we are again. This is exactly why I left. And then I come here to these spaces and I'm like, this is like the same thing, but it's just not Latin. It's not white. So I'm like, just like being able to be like not a voice, but like be here to help eventually guide and inspire other people that like it's gonna be okay and you're not alone, and here are the spaces and the resources for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And juntos, that's exactly how we're going to achieve that and work together. And that's the only way that it's possible at the end of the day. Marquita, I definitely love to hear from you. And I know you have just this amazing background and knowledge with everything that you bring to the table. How have you taken your own identity, proud Panamanian, recognizing the importance of increasing that visibility for your gente, for all of our gente, and using your passion and love of wine to create those platforms and build more of that inclusivity to make an impact in the industry?
Well, I think my career in wine, which of course started when I retired from dance, which was in 2002, and I went straight into another form of dance, which is wine. There's basically no difference between wine and dance, except for a Lester Horton technique class, and every dancer knows exactly what I'm talking about. It's hard. It's like blind tasting. It's impossible. But one of the things that I'm thrilled about today, even just participating in this panel, is that this has already paved the road for so many people to be included in our industry. And this is very important for me today because really moving to New York, moving to Brooklyn, living in Crown Heights, which is the largest Panamanian community in New York and actually in the country, I am allowed to be both. I'm from Chicago, and it wasn't often that with a name like Marquita Levy that I am recognized as even being a Latina. And so to be here today to talk about this experience is me speaking for a lot of people who don't necessarily identify as Afro-Latina or Afro-Latino, or can contribute or feel like they can contribute in Hispanic and Latino community. And I think the visibility of my role as a sommelier on the floor in many dining rooms and what that can do for moving it forward, because to tell you the truth, a lot of the times it happened to me on Friday when I guest sommed at Waverly Inn and got my tufo handed to me, is the shock that you see in people's face when you show up at the table.
Yeah.
And you have to overcome that. Yeah. And then explain the wine list, explain the food, and still have them get over the shock of seeing you in a space that has mostly belonged to white men.
Yeah.
And so you have to fight a lot of battles. But the first and beginning battle that is my advice to everyone is that if you show up, that is the first revolution. If you stand in that space, if you decide to study, if you make decisions for yourself, to be in this wine industry, because what wine has revealed to me, wine is a mirror. Wine shows me myself. Wine makes me more powerful. Wine makes me more of myself. And so when I get to share that with people, in a store, at the winery, on a dining room floor, in the future as a teacher, that's where all the power is. That's where all the power is.
Yes, power to nuestra gente. And you literally hit on so many things, There's this overwhelming feeling that you get of having to feel like you have to prove yourself to somebody just because you look different, even though you could have all of the education and experience. And yet now, instead of enjoying what you came there to do, you're having to justify the work that you're doing, your qualifications for doing so, instead of just being able to enjoy and discuss wine and revel in the whole reason why you're there to begin with. And I know that, all of us, maybe I don't want to speak for everybody, but I'm sure we've all had experiences in that. And that's why we're all looking to shape a very different future. That's why we're all taking the power that we have as individuals and trying to create something different as we look forward to the future. Pedro, you actually had a previous career in media, as well as, your experience in retail and distribution. Can you talk to me about how both of those previous careers, similar to Marquita, who was a dancer before, like how have all of those things, as you shift, assisted you with the direction and vision for Gran Cata and what you'd like to bring to the wine community?
So foremost, I think Julio and I always been like, we like to tell a story, and as Latinos, we are super connected to our fellow human beings and our community. So we wanted to bring a little bit of that flavor that honestly, when we moved, we got here to DC. It was a little bit far behind as the nation's capital. You know, before that, I've been to New York, I've been to Chicago, a few other cities in the United States, and you see a little bit of Latino flair, but here was quite underrepresented. And every time we like kind of hang out and wanted to a nice meal and open some nice bottles of wines that we knew they were in the market, we never could find them. So that the main proposers. Also in our media career, I think we convey a clear message that we're a Latino wine company. We represent the Latin world of wines, and basically we have to tell the story to all the curious wine drinkers and also more developed palates that they're super in DC, they're super in other major cities in the US, super European centric, and want to show them, oh, you like Bordeaux, you like Barolo, you like Rioja, try this, try that from different areas of Latin America. And what we're seeing in Latin America is kind of a revolution of more sense of place. There's more diversity than people expect. And secondly, the kind of the media background helped us to tell the story through our website, blog, social media outlets, in Instagram. Definitely is a big tool for us. So right now, everybody in the age of technology, everybody's with their phone in their hands, and they go to bed. They do everything with their phone. So we want to be ever present in those channels. So that's kind of the thing that we were aiming for, like creating content. All the amazing things that we're doing here is thankfully because we also have an amazing staff, and the staff helps us to convey and create and have more ideas to expand more on the Latin American culture. Not solely wine. For us, wine is food, food is wine. So we want to always interconnect both, and also always have our identity present. That we, I'm originally from Puerto Rico, so obviously we don't produce wine, but we, as you know, drink copious amount of wine with our dinner. So with Julio, he's from Chile, so we always kind of have the back and forth of sharing a glass of wine. Then the idea just came about, and we're super happy that we have 2 storefronts here in DC. We started like getting experience with career and went full. It's all about believing in your idea and also having a plan to it. I think that's the most important thing that we search, and we're thinking continue to do what we love. And for it's like it's work. It's just passion. It's always like every day you taste new wines. Every day you interact with different customers. So for us, that's like kind of the most rewarding experience when people take a bottle home. Julio mostly has more background on wholesale, like our fellow panelists here. So we decided let's do retail, because retail we can capture the audience that we want, that they can take the bottles home and they can enjoy, and they come back and their friends that come work, and you create like a word of mouth thing, and that's being a key component to our marketing strategy, the experiences, and also bringing new folks into the store. So.
Absolutely. You develop those relationships. You're able to connect on a level that feels very authentic, where you get to show up holistically as yourself and talk about what you just mentioned, even just the diversity within wine, right? Like sometimes it can be shocking, as you shared, like for people to really recognize like how much diversity there is, even just within that. We're not just Mexicanos, right? We're Panamanian, we're Puerto Rican, we're Dominican. Julio's from Argentina, Chile. Like there's so many other different countries and so many other countries who are producing beautiful wines that sometimes also too don't get the notoriety, don't get the respect, simply because there's this perception, this stigma that, there's only a certain type of wine that can be considered fino or elegant.
That's been the challenge, the ongoing challenge. It's always going to be persistent. We're passionate about it. We have accents, as all of us do. But secondly, we're from the region that we've been exposed to a lot of multi diversity within our market here in DC, and also bringing like leveraging the playing field, like And that's why we went with the name Gran Cata, because we want people to taste as much as possible, and that's the main goal. In our second location, pretty soon we're gonna have our wine bar operation, so we're gonna have like flights of wines with small pairings. So that's gonna be the experience. So we're super happy with that component. We finally do it. In DC, it's a little complicated with the liquor laws. We went through. So it's super exciting opportunity to do that.
Well, you'll see all three of us there very soon.
Field trip.
Marquita, you shared briefly earlier about, you shared briefly earlier about being a dancer and then, retiring that, switching over to wine. When you made that switch and it was a completely different industry, as a Latina, what did it feel like to navigate that new world of wine? And certainly, what has it been like in your experience? And I know you shared a little bit as that sales rep, distributor, and consultant.
Well, the wine was new. The path was the same in terms of visibility and knowledge, because as I call myself a Black Tina because my mother is African American and my father is Panamanian, so I'm double Black.
Yeah.
We gotta go. Watch out.
He said, "Ow."
So, when you have to go through the whole things and explain, but this is something that has been happening to me since high school. There was something that one of the panelists said earlier today when you talk about being over-prepared to over-prepare. Over-prepared to be prepared. And that's basically how I feel in the space at all times, is that if you are going to be in a space that is traditionally dominated by people who are not like you, you are probably going to be the first. You are going to be the first person that a lot of people have in contact with. And that is one of kind of the wonderful things about the restaurant industry, especially if you're working in restaurants, if you're working in stores, you have so much access to different people that it is kind of, I feel, my path and destiny to be visible in my skin and to show a level of wine. So people are just like, what does she do? I can do that. One of my great goals in the future, besides 10 years later, perhaps, maybe, hopefully, Jesus come down here and get me in Crown Heights. I would hope to be a master of wine, but on the way, I do want to be a certified wine educator, because I would like to be the person who shows up at the 8th grade job fair at the high school that says, and people are just like, what are you doing? I'm a dentist, I'm a lawyer, I'm an electrician, I'm a plumber, I'm a filmmaker, I'm a writer. I want to be the person who says, I'm a sommelier, and this is what you have to do to start. So you're not 25 years old, 28 years old, 36 years old, wondering if you can get into wine. You already know the history, you know the geography, you know the terroir. And then when you turn 21, you can start tasting, if you're not already sneaking some things over at the Thanksgiving table. Little sip, some barbacore.
We know what those Latino households are like.
Ray and nephew and iced tea every day. So if I'd known about this career in high school, how would that have changed my life?
I say the same
if
thing.
I'd known that there were directors of operations that were even the fancy people with the little thing and swirl, sniff, that terrible noise. People who invoice the wine, sales, distribution. What if I'd known that there's someone who needs to be bilingual who writes all of those wine descriptions? Yep. What about the person who goes to the countries to find the wines? I know somebody who's a som, who their job is to go to France and find new winemakers because they are bilingual. So I want to be able to show people that, and we're always there. We run the restaurant industry. That is us. And in terms of what I see for the future, in terms of bringing more people into the wine space, I think it should be a requirement of every restaurant. Every single person goes to wine training because as a som, you're the best busser, you're the best food runner, you're the best hostess, and your best coat check. And then when it comes to the wine streets, you bring the fire.
You got it on lock.
So
that's a great point because
team, if you can have a team that helps you with inventory, all of a sudden you have somebody who's in charge of your inventory, and you don't need to know everything about Bordeaux to be able to build a cellar. If you can build a cellar, everybody is going to want you.
Absolutely. Get it. Get it, girl. Yes. And I love that you even started to talk about what you're hopeful for when it comes to the future of wine in your personal career as well as what you want the industry to look like. For Darwin and for Pedro, as you look to the future of wine and the platforms that you've built and where, the next direction is headed, what do you want that future to look like as it relates to your own identities? How can we get there? And then in general, how can people support each of you?
I will say, because I wanted to add on to what Marquita had said earlier about just like having to explain your identity and self-being, it is absolutely exhausting. Yeah. And I think the best way that we all do it is literally by showing up and doing the work. At this point, like, there's resources out there, like, especially for my identity, there's resources out there that can help people to understand. I don't need people to understand exactly how I live my life, because no one's going to understand what it's like to be queer unless you're queer. But I will say that there needs to be a sense of awareness, and there needs to be more acceptance. And I feel like when I navigate, and I feel like me transitioning from production to hospitality will definitely be, it's something I want to do, because I want to be able to change the status quo on what stereotypes are towards what's professional. Going through a lot of service spaces, I was always told to cover tattoos, to not wear certain earrings, to not have certain hairstyles.
Oh, thank you.
Like, no, like, I want to be able to be my wholesome self, express myself however the hell I want, but also be a badass in that space and manage everything, manage people, have a team, educate, and always put DE&I and gender expression and identity at my forefront wherever I end up, because I think it's super important. Like, I just wanted to add to what Marquita had said.
If we all continue to show up, it won't be we're the only one in the room. It'll be like just a normal everyday. I cannot wait for the day, and I actually said this to Lydia when I did a live chat, when I don't even have to say that I'm Panamanian American, that I'm African American, that this and that, and I will just show up, and there will be no questions about that. There will only be questions about wine. Yeah, because there's enough of us in the room that is not even a big deal. Actually, I can't wait to be in a room where nobody asks me a single question, because there's so many young people in there ready to do it.
Ready to do the work.
Darwin's going to be there, answer questions. I'm going to sit in the back sipping on Barolo.
There you go. And Pedro and I are somewhere in there also sipping on Barolo.
Yes.
Pedro, as you look to the future of wine, what are you hoping that future looks like, and how do you think that we can all get there?
Well, as a business, our main goal is always to introduce people to Latin America and make them excited for the regions and the wines, for the end consumers. But as a business that inspires fellow colleagues in the industry, or people that, as you mentioned, and Marquita has a great point. When I was in college back in Puerto Rico, when I was 17, I started working at a restaurant for almost 5 years. And I did all the back of the house, front of the house work. And now is the time for us to shine, be the protagonists, be the storytellers. And I think that's kind of the main mission that all of us have, that we can be the wine director, we can be the entrepreneur, we can be the sommelier, the wine distributor. You can do so many things. That's the lovely thing about the wine industry, the diversity within. And also, if you have for folks that are trying to figure out if the wine industry is a good fit for them, think about things that you love as a kid. I remember that I always loved geography, environmental science, food, gastronomy, folklore, traditions, and all of that is encompassed in a bottle of wine. So If you like those things, you're probably gonna end up with a wine bug, and you're gonna get into the wine. And it's a process. You always have to keep that open-minded. That you're always learning. You always have challenges. It makes you better. It makes you grow, and it connects with fellow, wine industry folks like yourselves. That makes it all worth it. That we can share our experiences and inspire others to take a path if they desire to in the wine business. So that for us is kind of the two takes on the customer, but also like inspiring other fellow Latinos. As you all know, we're the largest minority in the U.S., so the demographics are super important, especially in like big metropolitan areas. That if you go to any restaurant, even if it's other types of ethnic food, you're gonna see a lot of amazing food being prepared by Latinos.
By Latinos.
Just an example.
And just to add on to that, something I've also noticed, and it's also something in the restaurant industry when it comes to higher up and supervisors and managers, there's such an emphasis on, people that come to this country or that have Latin backgrounds that they need to understand or learn English. But what about everyone else learning Spanish? What about wine material in Spanish? What about all this language that needs to be there in Spanish? I've met people that have worked in vineyards here and in production for over a decade, and they don't even speak English, but they know everything, the processes, terminology, all in Spanish. They've had to learn it. And I'm like, that's beautiful. And I feel like there isn't they have to find translators and such, but I'm like, it needs to be the other way around, because Spanish is now it's a second I'm pretty sure it's about to be first soon, second language that is spoken in this country. And there needs to be more emphasis on that, especially for our folks. Because I go home and my parents don't really speak English that well. They understand it, don't speak it. I have no idea how to explain to them what I do. All they think I do is that I live in some mountain. Literally, I live in a campo, in a mountain, and I just cut grapes and make wine. But the process for me is hard to explain, because I don't even know how. Like I'm still learning how to even explain everything in English. So to then understand it and then explain it to them in Spanish, I don't know any resources that are out there. So that's just something I wanted to bring up, because I think it's super important.
Gaps that exist that we recognize that, there could be big changes in to make sure that those futures are more equitable, that we're really uniting our communities. And to your point, Darwin, as well, as we think about, a lot of really skilled Latinos, Hispanic X individuals who understand the business and the nature of the wine industry from top to bottom, front to back. And yet, because of, again, that language barrier or not being able to articulate in English what it is, how many opportunities go missed for those individuals, right? And yet sometimes they're the most qualified in the rooms when we talk about the work that needs to be done and how somebody can understand that. So absolutely, when I look to the future of wine, I hope that people in those positions of power who can make those executive decisions to think about who they're welcoming in, who they're looking at when it comes to pipelines, career growth, you really start to analyze and think about who's already there that it can do the work, that maybe you just need to now be that person to invest in them to make sure that they're able to understand on a way where we work collectively. That's what we're all looking to do at the end of the day, right? Juntos podemos. That's the only way we're going to make things happen. And luckily for the rest of the wine industry, it has 3 phenomenal individuals like yourself who are doing the work, who are making sure that we provide that visibility, that others out there are inspired by your visibility, for authentically showing up as yourselves, for being able to vulnerably and openly and loudly share your stories and talk about your experiences, so that the next generation and the future of this industry, which very much includes us, again, $1.9 trillion expected buying power by 2023. We're now the largest race demographic in California alone. What will that look like 10, 15, 20 years from now? Let's make sure we're making sure that at the end of the day, everything is pushing progress forward 100%. Is there anything else that you care to share in terms of how people can support, how they can stay connected so they can directly invest in all of the work that you're doing and get inspired by the future of this industry and where it's going?
I was going to say, I'm starting a new initiative with Co-Fermented, and I'm going to be doing live IG chats with folks that I know that are queer in wine. So I just posted my first one, which will be this upcoming Monday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, with a dear friend of mine, Lena Wellington. She is absolutely amazing, and she just came out for production this year. So I'll be doing that hopefully once a month to just try to bring awareness and highlight folks that are queer and in wine.
Amazing. Amazing. I'll be there.
Yes.
Marquita and Pedro, any last words?
I think a lot of work, and I want to give a couple shout outs. I'd like to do a shout out to the Roots Fund. I'd like to do a shout out to Hispanics in Wine, to Lydia Richards, to Yvonne Reel, to the Hughes Society. There was the Wine Culture this past August, and I've never experienced anything like it. And it was basically over 200 plus people of color in a room celebrating wine, whether you just love to drink it or whether you are on a serious wine autostrada of knowledge and all of that fun stuff, wine tasting, all the sniffing and swirling and final conclusions. And it was something different for me to be in a room where I didn't have to explain. Last year was such a devastating time for all of us, but I think it gave us a minute to sit back and look at what the world was, what we were in, and how we get back into it. And now there's so many resources for us. There's Wine Unify, there's Lift Collective, there's Hughes Society, there's Hispanics in Wine. There are now scholarships. So if you have a phone, you basically have a wine Bible. You have so many paths, and if you have insomnia, you could just be in the wine streets 24/7. So the road is paved, and we just need to walk that walk, however long it takes. But it's nice to know that, similar to what Julia Comey did last year with Black wine professionals, once you see the numbers and you see that we're already here,
yeah,
and now, I mean, just even in the past couple weeks, I know 200 more wine people that are Latinx, and that's incredible to me. So I think the work has begun, and we just need to continuamos. We just need to continue.
Pa'lante. Pa'lante, absolutely. Thank you so much to each and every one of you. Literally, you are inspirations for so many people in this industry, certainly for myself, for so many other Latinos as well. It was so amazing getting to chat with you and to just get excited about where the future of wine is going. Clearly, it is in very good hands with the three of you at the helm. So keep doing the damn thing, and you've got cheerleaders in every corner, front, back, side to side.